It's my pleasure to welcome Satish Murli, Deputy Manager in Actuarial, to the stage for his session on IFRS cases, opting between refinement and rationalization. Satish will share his expert's insights on navigating IFRS decisions. Please welcome him on the stage.
Good morning all. I'm Satish. So I'm going to present regarding IFRS 17, the case for opting between refinement and rationalization. So in today's agenda, we'll have a quick recap. Regarding what has happened till now. I would like to mention that IFRS 17 is a principle-based standard. So there is no set formula how to estimate each of the IFRS 17 component. And since because of time constraint, during the transition period, bare minimum was done so that we publish the result during that time. But moving on from that time to next valuation period, we are trying to refine lot of the IFRS 17 components. So then we'll move to what is the difference that drives from IFRS 4 to 17. What are the profitability drivers, how it changes from 4 to 17. Then we'll wrap it up by seeing some of the IFRS 17 components industry benchmark. So we can see in GCC landscape, most of the countries, the IFRS 17 has been published, except in Qatar and Oman, it's Takaful companies are going to publish in Q1 2025. So in UAE specific, the journey started in 2022. The first reporting period was Q1 2023, but we had to do comparatives for 2022, and for 2022, we need opening balances of 2021. So it's been a long journey from there. Initially, there were a lot of data issues, especially in payable and receivable, from net balances to gross balances, and sorting out data consumed a lot of time. And to make the number, like take the inputs and then verifying the outputs from the black boxes that many solutions had, so it took a lot of time to make sure result made sense. So multiple reruns was happening, usually, especially in the transition period, even 15, 20 reruns were happening. But from there, the companies have made process and procedures. The number of reruns which we had before is drastically coming down. So as I said, bare minimum was done in terms of how to align with the principle which IFRS 17 standard said. But right now, it is time to refine those and look into each of the component, where can we refine those things. So broadly speaking, in the market, there are 4 kind of solution arrangements. So type 1 is where the company does everything independently on their own. Second is company just hires a consultant where everything is done by the consultant. So third type is 2 consultants are there. So one consultant will give lot of inputs regarding the cash flows, risk adjustment, but the solution is run by the another consultant, so they will give the financials and disclosures. And the fourth type is where the consultant gives support in inputs for the solution, but the solution will be run by the in-house company, and disclosures will be prepared by the in-house company itself. So I will have a quick Menti to see in your organization currently which kind of arrangement is there. So I'm expecting a lot of people will need a lot of support from the consultant right now, but hopefully in future it will go to type 1. So it's fairly evenly spread, but I was not expecting 25% done by type 1. So it's a good from where we started, so it's improving. So moving on, case for refinement and rationalization. So one thing is loss component and PDR. So there's a lot of confusion. What is loss component and what is PDR? And there's a misconception also that loss component will be higher or PDR will be higher. the underlying theme for 4 and 17, PDR and loss component, why it should be booked is same. So if you are writing a loss-making business, you have to book your losses upfront. But the similarity ends there. How we estimate loss component and how we estimate PDR is completely different. Some of the reasons for difference was PDR is estimated at portfolio level. So if the cross subsidy was happening in PDR. If one underwriting is profitable and another underwriting is loss-making, together it could be loss-making or together it could be profitable, PDR could deviate from loss component. And even within underwriting year, there was no guideline to segregate onerous contract and profitable contract. Ideally, in IFRS 17, even within underwriting year, if set of policies, for example, motor, we actually knows that from technical price, it is deviating a huge discounts being given. But other policies, discount is not happening. You have to segregate this and book the losses if actually feels because of discount, losses are going to happen. So even within underwriting year, the segregation can happen. And second thing is, PDR was on net basis. So if you look into, if the heavy reinsurance was there, the expense ratio, the denominator will be different in gross and net. So the expense ratio on net basis could be very high compared to gross. So there could be a case where net basis, its combined ratio could be more than 100 and PDR could be booked. But in gross basis, expense ratio could be lower and then there is no loss component at all. It's profitable. And there's no clear relationship between PDR and loss component, even net of loss recovery component, even if we take two elements, loss component and loss recovery together also. But if there's a deviation, company should understand why PDR is there, why loss component is there. If company is booking PDR, why loss, that deviation company should understand where it is coming from. And we have noticed that from in the starting in transition, many companies had PDR ratios, any combined ratio, any loss ratio. So for while calculating loss component, same ratio used for all underwriting years. So if that approach is being still used, it's time for refinement. We need to understand which underwriting is profitable, which underwriting is loss making. And for management also, it's good to understand from where the profitable business is, where this loss making business is coming. So moving on to the loss recovery component, standard is not very clear again how to estimate loss recovery. Because we have direct contract now, only if the contract is onerous, loss component is there, then loss recovery comes into picture. Right now, most of the companies, what they are doing is like they take the session ratio of previous claim experience and whatever loss component is there, they apply that session ratio and get the loss recovery benefit. But is it true with the spirit of the principle laid down by the standard? Because the standard says we have to calculate the RA contract separately. So we are missing out certain cash flows like risk adjustment for RI, commission income for RI, NPR for RI, what's the expected NPR. So based on that, your session ratio could be different from past. And even if you use the past ratio, if there are non-proportional treaties, you could have had a recovery. That doesn't mean that you're going to have a recovery in future also. So you have to mind, so that's a case for refinement over here. But logically, how much data we have, how much can be refined, depends on company to company, how comfortable they are. But that's a case for refinement and companies should start planning for it so that it's more accurate. So takaful companies is another interesting case because you have shareholder fund and policyholder fund. There was no specific guidelines when we implemented it in UAE. So whatever assumption was used in 4, same like wakala fee should be used together in policyholder, shareholder. So same thing was followed in 17. But now IFRS guidelines has come where it says that only policyholder fund should be used for loss component calculation. And some of wakala fee can be deferred. But right now in UAE, this is not there because already IFRS 17 has been implemented for takaful companies also. So another element is the cash flow pattern. So when I say about cash flow, it is payable, receivable data. So it was very hard to get gross balances itself for payable, receivable to begin with. But now we need good amount of payable and receivable data to understand how this will be settled in future. Right now, the assumption is, since it's only the cash flow pending, most of the company take like within 1 year or within 1 quarter, the cash flow will be settled. But is there a basis for it? No, it's just an assumption we are making based on our judgment. But in future, we have to, since the data is in granular level, is being captured now, in future this can be refined. So it depends on how much materiality this payable is there. As a part of LIC, I am stressing on LIC because in non-life most of the contracts are PAA, and LIC is where this gets impacted because of discounting. So if we say payable is getting settled in within 1 year or 1 quarter, it impacts our discounting, how much discounting impact will come. So based on how much is the proportion of payable in LIC, the materiality will vary. And since it's discounting impact, interest rate obviously will have an impact. And we have to see together also we can see the materiality. If we have payable and receivable, what will be the net discounting impact, whether it is material or not. And if data is available, definitely we have to do that analysis and see if we validate that numbers. If not, at this point of time, companies would have started capturing the data. In future, company can think of moving to this. So yield curves. So in yield curves also, we had a query from one of the auditors, why don't we use different yield curves for, say, LRC, LIC, or like different portfolio? The problem with that is most of the systems have a limitation. There's yield curve is a single input. So there is system limitation, like many systems does not allow us to have a different yield curve itself. And it gets little tougher when you unwind, then again you have opening yield curve, closing yield curve, multiple yield curve. So system again is a limitation over there also. But is there rational to do it? I believe for non-life already PA there is no discounting in LRC, only LIC is there, and the nature of contract is similar. So we can have a single yield curve for non-life together, and life probably we can have a different yield curve because the nature of contract is longer. So if we have to do, we can go that way, but now also we have to run the system 2 times to do it because system might not have the option of having 2 yield curves. Continuing with the yield curve is the illiquidity premium. So most of the places we are using bottom-up approach where we have a risk-free yield curve and we have to add a illiquidity premium. But what is this illiquidity premium? The standard does not define how to estimate it. So there's a lot of confusion right now. And we are using a proxy. So most of the people will use IOPA rate with volatility adjustment or IOPA rate with country risk premium which is volatility adjusted. So we are saying implicitly this illiquidity is getting captured in the volatility adjustment, but volatility adjustment and illiquidity are 2 different things. In non-life case, illiquidity is lesser because ALM is shorter duration. So whether it is needed or not is a debatable thing. And auditor also are not questioning for non-life perspective. But life probably refinement can happen in future. The other thing in reinsurance contract is the non-performance risk. It's a credit risk. So whatever RI receivables we have, based on the reinsurance credit worthy, we should create a default probability for it. So initially, some companies would have even skipped the NPR because the materiality could be lower if most of the reinsurance have good credit rating. But it has been refined now. There are 2 ways to go about it. We can take credit rating and then calculate what could be the NPR, or it could be an overlap between IFRS 9. In IFRS 9, if we are creating bad debts for RI claim receivables, even that can be used as an NPR. But the materiality of NPR is less. When we see the industry benchmark, we will come to know about it. So a quick question, it's been 2 years now. I just want to know how the audience feel regarding IFRS 17, comprehending the numbers. Is getting better compared to what was there in transition? So it's good, like we have 60% audience who feel that they are learning, but yes, it's a gradual learning curve. Over the years, we'll learn more. And mind it, like now we are comparing from 4 to 17, we are trying to see how the number move. But in future, I think 4 will become absolute and only 17 will be there. So gradually we'll go there. So what are the profitability drivers from 4 to 17? So the known elements are the risk adjustment, loss component, NPR, and discounting. I'll talk about it in the next slide, but there is something that's others. Even if you see there's a E-Forms IFRS 17 RECO, when we input all this, but still the number will not match and something will come in others. So what is that others? There are many reasons that can happen. So during transition, if data was not exactly matched, so that other difference will come over here and it will sit in the balance sheet. And it will be in the balance sheet unless and until we have a corrective measures in future run to correct it. So that is one possible reason. And if, for example, in 4 there was no DAC, in 17 we are creating DAC, that is one possibility. The other possibility is similarly UCI in RI side. And the earning method, if it is consistent in 4 and 17, how you create UPR, and how UPR interacts with bad debts. So these are the other things that can sit in other differences. So moving on. So these are, I'm speaking to the PA in non-life. These are the things that impact the profit from 4 to 17. So when I see gross and reinsurance separately, so in gross, risk adjustment, if it increases, what will happen to the profit? Profit will decrease. Because risk adjustment is something that is getting added as on the reserves the company already booked. So in income statement, if in IFRS 4, if our reserves increased, you can expect in IFRS 17 the hit will be higher because you are adding an element of risk adjustment. Discounting, the impact will be opposite because you are reducing your claims liability to the present value. So it's a benefit and it's a decrease if discounting is the other way around. Loss component is something we book if we have a loss-making contract. So the higher the loss component, profit will decrease, vice versa. Now we can have to flip the signs. Reinsurance contract will have opposite reaction. So risk adjustment, profit will increase because your claims recovery is increasing essentially. Discounting, again, the opposite. NPR is a credit risk. So when you are calculating NPR, essentially we are taking into account that RI, LIC, reinsurance might default. So higher the default, higher the profits will decrease. Loss recovery is the recovery amount for all the onerous contract where loss component is there. Reinsurance benefit is coming in. So higher the loss recovery, higher the profit. But I would like to mention loss recovery and loss component put together cannot be less than 0. So maximum you can get us, it should be 0. So in your view, in IFRS 17, how number has been impacted in 4 to 17? Profit increased, decreased, or no material change? So we can see a mixed results, profit increased and lesser profit, no material change. We have to dig deep. We have to not compare profits, net profits to gross and RI together. So as I was showing in the previous slide, to understand this impact, we have to see gross separately and RI separately. That will give more understanding how the profit is moving. So we'll go to industry benchmark. So risk adjustment. So you can see a wide range from 2 to 10%. The average is 4.4 to 4.75%. But when we compare two companies, it's not apple to apple comparison. As I was saying, IFRS 17 is a principle-based approach. So the standard says estimate risk adjustment. It does not say how to estimate risk adjustment. And what is the prudence margin the company should maintain. So the interesting part is like each company can have different way to estimate risk adjustment, different level of risk appetite, and different level of diversification benefit also. So just by seeing risk adjustment percentage on total portfolio level, we can't say that this is high or this is low. So in industry benchmark, the other components like risk adjustment, just I said 2 to 10% mean is this. So the percentile in risk adjustment. So you can see the high variety, like 65% to range, 65 to 90%. So probably a company using 65% might have a lower risk adjustment, vice versa. So averages in the industry standard is to 70 to 75%. So NPR, as I was saying, the impact is less. That's why in transition, most likely, if it because of time will be a data availability, it was skipped. But it's around 0 to 0.5%, and it varies from company to company based on the reinsurance structure and the ratings of the reinsurance. Discounting, majority of the in the market, people are using IOPA plus country risk premium with volatility adjustment. As I mentioned, for implicitly we are applying for liquidity premium. So we have done couple of runs from transition. So you people will be getting familiar with their system. So how satisfied with your current system? Are you satisfied with it? Not satisfied, but we'll have to stick to it because you have made a lot of investments in purchasing the system. Are you planning to change the system? Oh, there's quite a bit of people want to change their system. Oh, it's increasing. So changing the system is also quite a bit of effort happens because you need to get the opening balances from other system to migrate to the next system. A17 is a good system. There's a demo. Somebody want to change the system, they can have a demo for us. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Satish.